show up.
I would believe so.
Hello. Good morning, sir. How are you? Good morning. Good.
Oh, it's not that hard. Good morning, Clint. Glad you're here. And I think we have one more guest. Kate. What's her first name? Not Kate. She lives in the house right by Coach Street.
It's a heavy door.
I'd like to officially call to order this meeting of the Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation and invite Councilman Myrani Velasquez to bring our invocation.
If we can please stand.
Sure.
Stand after invocation for. Lord, thank you for giving us another morning and another day where we can come together to do the work that you would like us to do today. Put you first with the community. Allow us to come to the compromise
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag? Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. At this time, I'll ask our members to review the minutes from our previous meeting. And once you've had a chance to do so, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. At this time, I'll call on Raylan for our financial update.
Good morning. What you have in your packet is just a reminder of what your budget summary was for fiscal year '23. So that's the first page, just to let you know what those line items and how they were established. Second page are your expenditures. Year to date, as you can see, we've not paid out hardly anything in your budget, so everything is looking really good. And then the final page is actually a breakdown of your CO, the borrowing that we did. So you had a fiscal year '22 budget allocation for each of those projects, and I've gone through and projected your expenditures for the end of the fiscal year. So we will continue to report on the progress of your CO.
Sorry, Raylan.
You're good.
On the Ben Gill drainage improvements, was that part of the restroom package, or do we know?
Yes,
on
yeah,
page 7.
so all of that is gonna be grouped together with the park improvements.
Okay.
Yeah. We just had to set up a separate line item for that one.
Any additional comments or questions? Thank you, Raylan.
Uh-huh.
Moving on, I'll invite Glenn to bring us a park projects update.
Top of the morning to everyone. To God be the glory. It's a blessing to be here, Madam President, Board. I'll be brief. We've got a lot of fun things happening on this particular project. So if we go to the next slide, we'll dive right into the restroom progress report. So as you can see, that unit has been installed. We've learned that everyone loves it. It's a hit in the community, so we're going to try to keep moving forward with that. Next slide, please. Again, this is the Ben Gill baseball design, and I want to pause for a moment because we never solidified the specific location for this restroom. So I really need some input from the board. Obviously, we have a few items that we need to consider from our perspective, and that's the infrastructure. So depending on where you place the restroom, it can impact the cost associated with the infrastructure. So we got to get water and sewer to the location that you choose, which sometimes can be a little complex, but we'll get a chance to see that on a later slide. Next slide, please. Again, this is the Ben Gill softball. Has anyone been by the softball complex lately? So we've actually demoed the existing softball concession / restroom, and it looks quite different, but we're preparing for that beautiful unit to arrive here probably, we hope, sooner than later. There are some delays on materials, but we hope that doesn't derail our scheduling. Next slide, please. Okay, I talked a little bit about the photo on the left. We've got to get water and sewer to the proposed location for the restroom there at the baseball complex. Does everyone have a copy of okay. So if you look at the water and sewer that runs over to the new restroom, there's a creek channel that we're going to be required to cross. In crossing that creek channel, if you're looking north on this map, okay, that's going to the top. That's an encasement component. There's sewer and water separation, and then that would require encasement, which can get really expensive. And I don't know if the city engineer has spent much time with encasing water and sewer, but it can get fairly expensive. So if that's something we want to entertain, we're going to keep moving forward with that location. If you look down toward the existing pavilion, we've got water and sewer a little closer to the pavilion. So there's areas that we can identify that won't require encasing water and sewer, which would be a cheaper cost, but it'll be, 50 feet, 75 feet from the location that we have proposed to you today. So I would love to get some input on the location. I think we talked about this the last meeting, and I don't know if anyone provided any input to the president, but if not, I'd love to get that input sooner than later, so we can figure out where we need to run the utilities to. On the right side of this photo, the softball complex, the sewer, which is the red line, we've got approximately 1,000 linear feet of sewer that we need to replace. The water is fine at that location. And then the softball complex, we're gonna be okay. We've got to run new water and sewer to that as well. We're waiting on costs associated with that location as well. So are there any questions associated with where we are today?
Yeah, the water line that you said runs across the creek,
Yes, sir.
that's a proposed new water line?
Yes, that's correct.
Could we go from the other new restroom and then just go left? You don't have to cross the creek?
We could do that. It would be fairly expensive. We're gonna have to tear up the baseball complex to accomplish that. We're in the baseball season, so that's something we can look at, but we would need to shut down the baseball program to accomplish that goal. And preferably, we prefer not to have water and sewer running under the baseball unless it's irrigation. If it's a main, we prefer to keep it outside of your main, your field of play, things of that nature, and keep it in a corridor or outside of areas that would be impacted. Okay.
I was talking this blue line here.
That's exactly right. That's running across the middle of your baseball field.
We don't want that.
We don't want that.
Okay, I didn't know what that was.
That's correct.
I didn't want that either.
Yes, sir.
I thought that's what we're proposing.
No, sir. No, sir. That's existing. So everything proposed should be proposed sewer line, which is gonna be identified on the map there.
So today, what you're thinking might be the best case is the proposed sewer line, 209 feet, and the proposed water line, 281 feet, where the picture is?
Yes, ma'am. Move it a little closer to the pavilion.
Would you, wait, move it a little I don't think we understand where you're suggesting we put it. Is
Okay,
it not
I
where
don't
the
have
picture is?
does this pointer work? Oh,
It doesn't point, I mean, that works, but it doesn't, you can just kind of move the mouse here.
I don't want to.
so there's your pavilion, okay? So if we consider locating the restroom in this general area?
It's not showing up on our screen.
Oh, you have to do it on that.
Oh,
We'll get there.
okay, can everyone see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so here's your pavilion. You've got areas here that could provide a less expensive, easier connection. You can propose it here, in this area. We can get to the sewer and the water's easy to access this area here. There's an island here. I wouldn't recommend it because it'd be impacted by a tree, but those are a couple areas that would be less intrusive.
personally was never on board with blocking what is a decent-looking entrance to the park right now.
Because I think we talked about that last time, not blocking. We don't want, the first thing you see when you go into the baseball complex is a restroom.
So the sort of peninsula area, below where it says proposed water line, yeah, what are the board's thoughts on that location? Is that the,
I mean, I think that's the most central location to everything being used, which makes it make the most sense to me. But I also don't have a small child playing t-ball who needs to go potty right this second. So,
well, the T-ball kids will still go to the central concession area. There will still be restrooms there.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, this will be for those at the pavilion, walking trails, and playground. So we want to be central to that.
And I think don't run the additional lines, just put them where the lines already exist in between the playground and the pavilion.
Glenn, what about, what feedback do you have for the new restroom being at, if we're looking at the map, the wording specifically for the proposed water line, 281 feet, putting the new restroom like to the right of 281 feet in that corner. There's going to be updates to the pavilion. We have a bathroom at the softball. We have a bathroom also closer to the football field moving south. What are your thoughts on immediately right or in that corner of 281 feet?
I think any of those locations are great. I prefer to sustain the trees and not get into any of the tap roots. So that area, anywhere in that area would be phenomenal. I prefer not to impact tap roots on the beautiful trees we have in that area. Because shade is critical in the park right now, because we don't have a lot of trees, so. In that.
Okay, we still have the restroom that's in the pavilion?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We still have those?
Yes, sir. They're currently being remodeled as we speak, and I think we'll get into that a little later in the presentation.
I'd like to do a recount of, and I know it's later in the presentation, right on, we have a new bathroom at the we're going to at the softball field. The pavilion's being updated. We have a newer, it's being updated, the one at the football field. That seems like a lot of bathrooms in a general area. I know we have limited bathrooms over at the pavilion, but I'd like to hear thoughts on whether we maybe consider a different location or a different park for that additional bathroom.
I would, go ahead, Madam President.
I do recall the conversation, and it was centered around it's my understanding the pavilion restrooms tend to stay locked unless there's an event happening, and we want our citizens to use the walking trails and to have a place to use the restroom, because the baseball restrooms are not conducive to that. I mean, if I'm out there, I assume the baseball restrooms are locked if there's not baseball games going on. But if I'm walking, I would need a place to maybe fill a water bottle, use the restroom.
And also when children are playing, there's not really any place close by to go.
To go potty. Now, that playground, I think, needed some work. I don't know if there's many children playing on it, but yes, I agree, Mary. Will the pavilion restrooms do they stay locked unless someone's rented the pavilion?
We have flexibility there. I think that the current process and our goal is, once we get internet service, we're going to be able to lock and unlock those particular doors. So once we get the internet in the park, we'll have mag locks just like you have here at City Hall and some of our other facilities.
Other thoughts or feedback for Glenn? Okay, so what I think I hear a consensus is, to me, what looks like a little bit of a sandy peninsula.
Yes, ma'am.
Just below the blue marker that says proposed water line 281 feet.
Yes.
That
Yes,
is that is directly on the walking trail.
yes, ma'am.
One downside is a kid or whoever is at the playground will have to take the sidewalk to get there or jump the creek.
Right.
But then it saves money on utility extensions.
Yes, ma'am. And it's not unreasonable that we could put a slight low water crossing there so the kids can, if it's dry weather, they can meander right straight across to the restroom. That's just a sidewalk connection, and that's not uncommon.
I think it's probably pretty close on the sidewalk, so maybe okay.
Okay.
Glenn, we wouldn't lose any trees if we put it there, correct?
No, ma'am. That's correct. No $1 million bridges. That's correct. Yes, sir. Okay, next slide. We'll breeze right through Breezy Hill Park. You can go to the next slide. That's the design. The planned location for the Breezy Hill bathroom is there adjacent to the walking trail, which is also in between the playground and the basketball court. So I don't think there were any issues. There's water and sewer nearby, so we don't have a problem there. We will have to run it, but we're good there. Next slide, please. Okay, and there's our quick schedule. The modulars are scheduled to arrive in July. Obviously, utilities were pending, now they're not, so I can move forward to get actual dollar costs associated with the utilities, so we should be good to go. Next slide, if there's.
When does the adults are the only one using the softball complex right now, correct?
That's correct.
When does their season start?
It's starting now, but we have portable restrooms out there to accommodate.
Is there a sign that says like coming soon?
No,
Shiny
no,
new
ma'am.
bathroom? Okay.
There is not, I'm sorry. If you want one, we can put something up, but no, there's not. Okay, I think that's all I have, and there's the vacant space for the new modular restroom for the softball. And I think that's the last slide. Okay. Oh, there is another slide. I'll do it. Okay, so this is just a brief snapshot. I won't cover all of them. These are your remodels. I know we had a conversation related to remodels. Our progress, we're planning to have all of these locations done by fall of 2023. That's including the soccer, football, and the pavilion. I almost added another restroom, but not yet. So that's where we are, and that tells you kind of a quick recap of the progress. And then there's the guys doing the remodel on the restrooms. Okay? That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Any questions for Glenn? All right, thank you. All right, next I'll ask Raylan to lead a discussion on Quiet Zone and Complete Streets updates.
Okay, so we're going to talk about complete streets and quiet zones for just a few minutes. What I'm showing you today is just some of the slides that, sorry, you can go ahead and. There we go. Okay, so we did have a town hall meeting on February the 28th. We had about 125 people there. I think it was very, very well received. We got a lot of feedback on the different options. Currently, we are going through a lot of those comment cards. We have also posted an online survey. We are Grand Central Station for all phone calls and emails right now, and so I've set up several meetings with individuals throughout downtown, also just residents who had questions about what all was going on. So we've been sending out lots of information and holding lots of meetings here at City Hall. So just to kind of recap, these were the exhibits that were provided to the public during that meeting. Obviously, option A was just basically we go back with what we have. B was to eliminate all of on-street parking. C was to eliminate left turn lanes down Moore Avenue. D was no parking, no left turn lanes, et cetera. And so we just kept going through each option. And then E was the one-way couplet. So whenever the voting came in, it was very obvious that we need to spend some more time looking at the one-way couplet. I think that that was very well received. So we're going to narrow it down to two options, and probably what we're going to explore is kind of a hybrid of the other exhibits. So you may have certain blocks that still will accommodate the parallel parking, so we'll have some parking downtown, and then we'll also be able to eliminate some on different blocks. So when you look at kind of your service businesses, when you look between Rockwall and Francis, yes, those parallel parking, they could possibly stay. And then when you focus between Francis and Adelaide, maybe that's where we could recruit for restaurants, and you could have wider sidewalks in those areas. So we're looking at kind of combining all of the exhibits into one, just to help accommodate the different businesses that we have downtown. We've met with the project review committee again. I think our next step is going to be to have a one-on-one meeting with TxDOT and really dive into would they consider bringing Nash on systems? We know that we have a lot of utility work. There's a lot of research that has to be done for the one-way couplet, but we now realize that it was very well received from the community. So it is something that we need to explore. I think moving forward, we probably will not bring back any more exhibits until probably end of May, just while we're gathering all the data and setting up meetings with TxDOT. So we'll just continue to keep you in the loop as we move forward and getting that feedback from the state. So do y'all have any questions about quiet zones or complete streets?
Do you know how many of our downtown business owners attended the meeting?
I don't know off the top of my head. I think there were quite a few. And I know that I've gone and talked to several of the downtown business owners and then also the tenants as well.
When, I know, I spoke with Raylan at the meeting, but when can we expect to see actual timelines that we can give to business owners? Because I will tell you, I don't know what they're saying to you, but people are very upset. I have been called for people to join on to the lawsuit that I'm filing against the city, apparently.
Okay.
So I think that a complaint that I have heard is not enough information. So I think if, we can say this is going to be, it won't start for a year and a half and then it'll take a year and a half from that point, or if we can say, hey, it's going to be on the south side of the street first and then the north side of the street. I just think more information will help in the way that this is being received.
Yes, and I think the biggest piece to communicate to people right now, and I'm trying to do that one-on-one, we didn't go into timelines during the town hall meeting because it does kind of depend on which option you go with. But realistically, you're looking at 3 to 5 years in design and environmental clearance. And so when we talk about construction, this is a 10-year plan. And I think a lot of times that's where the frustration comes, is that there's a lot of information in the beginning and then people think that you're not doing anything, but it's all the design work that takes so long. So I've put together a continuous community engagement plan. We're definitely going to keep our websites updated. We're looking at doing different things on social media. We're also going to do some downtown property owner registration type thing through my office so that I can send direct communication to owners as well as tenants. And so the communication piece is going to be key. And obviously, if y'all would please just send people my way. I've tried to meet with as many as I can and answer as many of those questions that I can. So,
Raylan, when we were at the meeting,
mm-hmm.
it was well done, I might say, and I was glad to see so many people there.
Mm-hmm.
They referred to a website that was going to be established for this project. Is that up yet?
Yes, so when you go to the City of Terrell website, there is a downtown development button on our homepage. And so if you go there, it's broken down by complete streets and quiet zones and town square and all of the different projects that we
Okay, I
have.
had a couple of people ask me,
Mhm.
I'll be honest, I haven't been to the city's website.
Yes,
Search
yes,
it
so
out.
it's
Thank you.
downtown development, it's all right there.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Mhm.
Raylan, good and opportunities for feedback. So the downtown meeting, I think it was virtual, it was online, you had the maps on the projector, and then you also had them at the tables, and really enjoyed seeing the comparison matrix to give you an idea of where you stand on whether you want more sidewalks or you want, less lanes in front of those businesses. Certainly, looking for opportunities for feedback. Did notice the insert for the meeting in the water bill was received after the meeting.
Yes, it was. I've also taken several of those phone calls, and yes.
Perfect. Well, it sounds like next week, I would still like to see the water bill insert for the next meeting, and hope we can get that out in time so community members are aware of it earlier. And you mentioned, I may have just missed here as you were sharing, because I went to the website, the city website, which has an enhancement. But did you say there's a link on there to the new website, or it's still pending?
No, it's right there. On the city website, there's a downtown development button on the left-hand side.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, downtown development, perfect. And then I'm also looking for the survey link.
So if you go to Complete Streets Quiet Zone project, which is there at the top,
Okay,
once that pulls up, then there on the left-hand side, you can see the survey link.
okay. I'd really love to see that survey link on the top of the page, somewhere prominent on the main City of Terrell page.
Okay.
So I had to you have to do a couple.
Right, yeah. So what I am doing is, because, yes, those notices were received after the town hall meeting, so every one of those phone calls that I've gotten, I'm sending people the direct link to the survey, and then also I'm sending them the presentation as well. So, but I'll make sure that survey gets on our main page.
Thank you.
Other questions or feedback for Raylan? I'll just emphasize what was said, we're still very early in this planning process. We are not and have not voted on anything
Right.
as a board. And I think that's an important message to send to our community as well, that we are in the feedback period. It's okay to give us that feedback.
All of it, yes.
Open to it. We're not married to this plan, but one thing the city, I feel like all of the citizens can agree on is that our downtown can be better than it is today. And I hope you're going to show us the picture of downtown Ennis.
Yes.
And what our downtown could be, should be, and is way overdue for this type of improvement. So,
Change is hard, and we're going to have a lot of patience to get through the construction. But, I think as long as we just stay the course, it's going to be well worth it in the end, for sure.
all right. Thank you. At this point, let's move on to discuss our capital work plan update and a new picture.
I was just fixing to say, the first thing we need to do is schedule a time for all of you to take a new picture, please. So we'll get a new picture for our new capital work plan book that we'll put together after this. So Just wanted to open this up mainly for discussion. I've gathered some information for y'all, just listening to some of your requests and some of the comments that you've made since October. So I've put together some cost estimates. We've got some project ideas, but I really would like an open dialogue of what you would like to see staff put together, if there's pricing, if there's projects that you are particularly interested in. We need some feedback on how to prepare you for your upcoming budget workshops. So basically what I wanted to do was kind of go through, I pulled down your initial list from 2020. This was the full list, and you prioritized from this list to your top 3. So just to kind of give you an update, kind of let you know from which you came. Obviously, downtown parking, buildings, lighting, et cetera, it's always been part of the conversation. And I'm providing an update to you. So your lighting project you were able to complete, downtown parking, I've got some funding opportunities for you this next fiscal year. The facade program, you decided to go with the facade program rather than a building purchase or renovation. So I've got a new application that we'll go over at the end of this presentation. Lighting downtown, I've put together some pricing for that. Gateways or the signage, again, there'll be some funding opportunities brought on. Murals, everything the same. And then everything else was a hold for later, but I wanted to make sure that I brought this full list back to you. So again, your decision points were the neighborhood park improvements, which you've just heard about. Y'all have done a great job with that. Did want to talk to y'all about proposing another joint meeting with the park board. If y'all are interested in doing that, is that something that y'all would like to do before we go into the budget planning, just so you can hear from them? And I think that the president over there is nodding his head for park board meeting. South Alley Complete Streets. This is the utility construction project that we've been talking about. Definitely, you've got the water and sewer project going on. The underground electrical, it's approximately $5 million. We were able to break that into phases at this point, so we'll talk a little bit about that here in a little bit. And then the Adelaide Pocket Park, which is being handled by the private developer there on Adelaide. Your larger projects were your downtown complete streets, which we will continue marching forward. Parking lots, which we will look at here in just a little bit. You completed your lighting project, and the rest of these were just comments from the community at the time. Your focus was still the downtown complete streets and then lighting at the parks, which y'all were able to, oh, there's the best picture. So now we will go into project considerations, and this was the picture that Tori was talking about. So this is Ennis, and it looks very, very painful on the left-hand side, but they have done an incredible job, and that is an actual photograph of what it looks like now. They still have a long ways to go, but even the baby steps start looking good once you can get through just the construction phase of it all.
Do we have a feel for what their timeline was when they started talking about this project till today?
They had a very, very aggressive timeline. They were able to do most of theirs 3 to 5 years. Well.
Hear it now.
And so, Raylan, my comment on this would be, I think visuals are better for people than just verbal communication, because I think a lot of the feedback that I've heard from business owners is they think we're going to rip the front of their building off, and nobody's ever, like, their front door is not even going to be accessible. So, like, in this photo, you can see, is it messy? Absolutely.
It is, yeah.
But you still have you're still preserving the existing sidewalks. You're just doing the work around those. And so I think that would be helpful too. And you're right. Everybody resists change. Growing pains are hard for everybody. I just think the more we can show them,
Right.
it's not gonna be as bad as you're imagining is it gonna be, the better it's gonna go.
Well, and I think also the next round of town hall meetings, et cetera, we'll know more. We'll be able to talk to them about parking lots and where we've already acquired property for those parking lots. And so when we're able to unveil that information, I think that will also soften the blow as well. So, but yes, it's messy, but very worth it. So, in just listening to y'all in the last few months, we've talked a lot about security. So one quote that I got with Chief McKeon. He is putting the flock camera system around Terrell, and so I was proposing 12 cameras. Obviously, the operation or the maintenance of the cameras would come out of general fund, but the initial install of the cameras is $3,600 each, and we've kind of identified 12 locations that he feels like would really cover the downtown core area. So that was one consideration. The downtown parking, we have parking lot design concepts for the corner of Rockwall and Moore, as well as Virginia and Moore. So each of those projects are approximately $600,000, and that's design and construction. So those would be a couple of projects for your consideration. Phase 1 of the underground electrical project, which would be to run the conduit only underground, and then whenever we go in to do the final phase of South Alley, which is the quiet zone medians, and you go in with complete streets, then we would actually take the electrical itself under. So we were able to kind of split that project up. We're estimating about $400,000 for environmental clearance, and so that would just keep us moving forward in that process, preparing us for grant opportunities for complete streets. Some streetscape elements, if you wanted to do benches or planters, we had actually a couple of comments during town hall about, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if we had bike racks downtown? So I made sure to include that. I promised him that I would. So I put that on the list. And actually, I got a quote for downtown rooftop lights. And we would be using the electrical from the street lamps. So we would not be plugging into anyone's building, and we would be 100% on our own. But I thought that price came back really well. One request that I'm making is for a downtown building code and preservation assessment. And this would also kind of feed into a master plan. What I'm proposing is to work with Mark Thacker, our architect, and actually go in and have a true leasability assessment done for each of our buildings in our downtown core. It would give us a good inventory of what we have. We would have an initial list of what needs to be done to that building for leasability or for sale. This also would give us, the city, an opportunity to meet with these property owners and have a list going forward of requests that we would start making of them on their buildings. And with that, again, pictures. It's very hard to get people to imagine the downtown looking any different. And so I think that money would be very well spent to have some renderings done once we have a vision of the types of businesses we want to recruit, so that we can provide that to developers. And also when we're meeting with property owners, being able to show them what their buildings could be. I think it's also important that we look at landscape and architecture and all of that in one, and realizing that Complete Streets and US 80 and Spur 226 is a 10, 15-year project. What do we want it to look like between now and then? So I think we need like baby steps, because it needs to be cleaned up. Although we are a lot cleaner than we were. we went and cleaned all of the flower beds, so at least now we have a blank slate. Park design services, this would be for 3 new parks. So we're looking at Central Park. We also have property at West College and possibly East Nash if the county commissioner moved out to 429. So that could be a possible another park area. And then at no cost was just the update to the downtown revitalization program. So ideas, other things that you would like to see, any of this that you would definitely want off the list? I would really like some feedback.
Y'all are gonna have to speak up at this part.
Raylan, one of the, I really appreciate the background that you bring in facilities management and which can help us be conservative with our funds, but then also prepare long-term, right? With like the downtown building code and preservation assessment, downtown master plan. Can I see some of our small business owners or tenants at this time being like, yikes, you're going to come tell me I have to improve everything and maybe I can or can't afford it in the future. I certainly think we will have that. And at the same time, I think it's important to prepare for the future, because it's one thing to have a really nice, exterior in downtown and then walk into a shop and have a leak that's
Right.
occurring. So I appreciate that, and I want to continue to see more of how can we provide safety with, as an example, how can we make it more safe in downtown? Of course, something as simple as lighting to help with that as well. That's my initial feedback. This is a lot to
It is.
take
yeah.
on, and I think there's ongoing conversations. And stopping by your office to chat more.
Sure.
I really appreciate the leasability plan, because I know from speaking to people, a lot of people feel like in Terrell, if the landlords do the renovations that really need to be done, then the lease is way too high for anybody to float, but it's too expensive to buy a building and redo it. And so everybody's in the situation where you look at blocks and, you've got 50% of the block having no business in it, no lights, no traffic, and that's not good for anybody. And so, I don't know how much we could do as the Paddock Board, but I certainly think it's something that the city needs to look at, to meet with people to figure out where that split needs to happen, that people can afford to do business in downtown Terrell, because right now that's a big struggle.
I will say that I stole the leasability assessment from Ennis. They started with that. And so it gave them an amazing inventory of their buildings. And whenever they were recruiting or asking, they knew exactly where a certain shop could go. And so I think it's good information to have.
That's definitely one thing we're gonna have. You can't avoid it. If somebody has to spend $200,000 on their building, they have to raise the rent. If Kaufman County then raises that valuation by that $200,000, that's $500 a month. I mean, that's not even raising the rent, that's just staying equal. So if it's important to us to see, if we recruit a small business right now, we go with this complete streets and we go with these plans, and 15 years from now we have something that looks like Ennis, those businesses we recruited will likely not be able to sustain unless they are, just insanely successful. I know there's a lot of different experiences in life on this board, but small business is made up of entrepreneurs that are really good at business and then provide a service that everyone needs, and then really passionate, talented people. And those don't always translate to extremely savvy business people, and they invest and they get excited, and we love them and we want them and we're so excited to have them. And people shop there, people eat there, and they lose money every month. And it can't be our job to keep people in business from the financial sense. Now, we have to edify those businesses and shop and go, but it is important to make sure that they know that we do care, because at the end of the day, when this is finished, a likelihood is most of the businesses on Moore Avenue that are making it will probably be on Nash Street, or they'll be on Francis or Adelaide or College, and that's okay, because if Moore Avenue becomes these huge draws, well then, even if they're one block over, now they have a ton of new traffic. It's just explaining the economics of essentially, gentrification of I know there's other words when it comes to commercial, but just explaining those economics to the business owners when they are in full panic mode is not easy. And if we lie to them and say, no, it'll be fine, it is a lie. I mean, we don't know. If we owned every building, we could control it, and there would be an election somewhere soon when everyone got voted out for allowing corporate welfare to small business owners in the downtown district. I mean, you just can't always pay people's rent. But when we're starting off, there are some things we can do to recruit restaurants. And I don't know I know the EDC's rule's a little better. I assume we probably have a lot of the same ones.
You
but,
do.
To subsidize rent. And then you get into do you want to reward a bad landowner? No. But sometimes they've been bad for so long, you really can't beat them. You might as well just help them. You just got to decide if it's important. But we do need to make sure we really are tiptoeing and don't say the wrong thing, because progress is expensive, and business owners can't just, okay, $1,000 a month. Well, it's $1,000 a month because your roof is leaking, or your sewer only flushes when it hasn't rained. I mean, that's what you get for $1,000 a month. So we just have to be careful, and I hear that too. Oh, I don't want to be run out of downtown. I'm like, what? Yeah, but if we don't make these improvements, you'll never have business anyway.
Right.
It's terrible. So good that you have the phone number that they call, not us. So.
We get lots of phone calls. And it's good. I mean, it just, like I said, change is hard, but it's okay. But kind of what you're saying, I see more recruitment in the activities for downtown. I think that retail will naturally happen, but I think a focus on restaurants or anything that we can do to bring people to downtown, farmers markets, having the crowd should be the focus. And then I think that the rest of it will happen naturally. Speaking of farmers markets, have a meeting with the owner of the Southland building. And so I think that he is trying to put together a plan. So hopefully I'll be updating y'all within the next couple of months. He's putting some renderings together, and we're going to schedule a meeting with the DRC so that he kind of knows what he's up against. And he is going to propose an open-air farmers market in the Southland building, which I think is a very cool idea. I think it'd be really great for Terrell. So hopefully we can work out some of those details also.
My thoughts on the next phase of our capital improvement plan, because we are laser focused on complete streets, and we as a board have agreed that we're going to support that when the time comes. We're already supporting that with all the planning and engineering up front. But the next 3 years, I see us potentially moving towards a focus on those buildings, the facades, because the rest of it's going to get torn up. But helping those business owners, perhaps both outside and inside their buildings. I mean, this is my ignorance. If we help some of these building owners by putting new roofs on these buildings, does that impact their tax value? It shouldn't.
EDC purchased that. They fixed it. They were about $300,000 invested into the building. They recruited Crumbs. They gave them a super cheap lease. Then they sold the building for $250,000. So they took a loss, which you can do on commercial properties. They didn't have to take a loss, but they did. 2 years later, fast forward, and then that new property owner raised the rent, and now Crumbs is gone. There are some other factors in that, but, you know, I know we've said no to buying buildings in the past. I think that's fine, but if we're not gonna buy buildings, we're gonna have to find a way to give loans, incentives, rebates, because they aren't gonna fix it. They're just not gonna do it. It's so expensive, and it should be expensive, because we want them to do it right, you know? We want them to not beat these guys up when they go and they try to do something. They say, what do you mean I have to make it safe and not fall over? And they just don't get it. It's expensive. But yeah, I think if we can help people with roofs, I don't know if we can do loans. I don't guess we can, but pay back through taxes. But I don't know. And anything we do, the council has to approve. So if it's too controversial, they'll just say no anyway. But
I assume, oh, I'm sorry.
So, one of the, when Fenner was here, one of the feedbacks, some of the feedback I gave was around doing, oh goodness, forgetting the right name for it, but it's essentially an agreement, a contract with specific business owners that would allow for, you know, those improvements. If we didn't outright want to, you know, buy a building or buy a building, but doing more of what we've done with the building that the Piñas bought, and certainly that's a much larger project, but I also wonder if this conversation leads into the downtown revitalization program that you have on the agenda.
So, yes and no. So that is still just a very basic program. I'm recommending the 20% of total construction, but not to exceed $25,000. So that's just the average, kind of like what Ms. Cholet did. I want to clean up my property. Would you reimburse me for those expenses? More of what you're talking about are the development agreements. And so those are your larger developers. Those, you know, obviously they're worth more than just the $25,000, what we used to call the facade program. But, you know, could you have a way for people to apply for those development agreements, you know, to take it to the next level? I think so. I think that generally y'all are given that option after, you know, when staff kind of puts some ideas together or it goes to city council, and so that's how some of that's worked out. But, you know, does everyone know how to go through that process? No, because it's not really advertised that we do it that way. So if that's something that you want to look into, kind of solidifying how to go about that process, then we could work on that.
It feels a little bit like we, you know, when the paddock board formed and we got some press, there was some property owners that pretty immediately came to us, did some projects. I think about the Jones building next to the bank. We gave him a little bit of money. He funded the rest. Now the rent is pretty exorbitant and the building is empty. So I do think we have an opportunity to come alongside the not vacant buildings. And I hear what you're saying, and we do have to be careful on what the impact to their rent and taxes. But, you know, our relationship is with the landlord as much as it is that business. And, you know, we want to help that business draw customers in. And the landlord's not doing that right now. So I think we have the funding to try that. We haven't done that yet. We haven't funded an existing small business improvement because they don't own their buildings. Right. And so I think the lease plan that is going to help. It's hard to think they would turn down some free money for, I'm thinking simple facade and roof, or if there's something inside that's been damaged because of those exact issues, then maybe we can partner with them on some of that. But the more we pay, the less theoretically it would impact their rent, because the landlord hasn't had to come out of pocket
Right.
and is not trying to recoup those costs. So I think that might be the direction we're moving with some of this capital plan money going forward. Most of the things on this list won't be impacted by complete streets, which is good. Rooftop lights, that's an easy, write the check, feel good,
I would-
downtown looks.
That's what I was gonna say, Raylan, we're not, I see it. I
Just making
appreciate
sure.
that it is on there, I see
It is on there, I promise.
I would like for us to have a more specific presentation on that specifically, that we have an actual vote on.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, because I think that's, I think, definitely before Christmas. I think that's a relatively easy thing, and like you said, it's a big thing with, big impact, low cost relatively, so, yeah, I would love to see a vote on that.
Can do that, for sure.
I would like to say that I think it's important to try to help these small businesses, as Tori was saying. So how do we choose which business to help? Do we help everyone, or they have to meet certain priorities? How do we choose who one that we're gonna help?
That's a great question. My guidance for you would be, you open this to the landlords, and I predict most will not take you up on it. But the one or two that does, now you've kind of got a partnership forming and a place to start. So I don't want to choose the business. It's not their building. It's if the landlord's willing to partner with us on some improvements. And I hope we don't meet opposition. We'll kind of go, I don't want to be in the business of choosing businesses. And that's a great point, JC.
We can build in some rent control into an agreement too. If we improve this, you can't go up on your rent aside from, hard costs, fixed costs. Taxes go up, you can go up, but you can build in rent control for a certain period of time. There is a cap on how long you can do rent control. Yeah, I'm with you, because when they don't do that, the next year, instantly rents double, and
You're back to square one. Right.
but restaurant space is probably if that's something I would want to target personally. And, everyone hears restaurant, they think steakhouse and fancy. And that's great, but really you want to start with something that's going to be very, very high traffic and quality, not necessarily high end, but just, a really good burger place, a really good pizza place, a really good, just something that's going to get lots of people. And the more affordable the food, the more traffic you get. And the only way to do that is to find a landlord, preferably that already has the grease traps and things in place, and just get them to fix it up. And in exchange, we will either help you fix it up, or we will help you cover some of the rent. And then you just go out and you truly find even if it's somebody that's here in town with a bad location, and you move them, but you just find a restaurant that's going to get some buzz. It is crazy. It's got to be good food, but then also a good business owner. So you can feel like a unit. Crazy.
Anything else you'd like to show us?
I think it was really just the list. There were a couple of, here's the example of the parking lots that we're going to bring for your consideration during budget talks. This is gives you an example of what I'm looking for with that preservation assessment. So that this will just tell you the different topics that I'm asking the architect to go through. And I wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up. So the British Museum has been meeting, and they have a planner, which is Kaiser. And they have a proposal to sprinkle British themes all throughout downtown. Steve loves this. So basically, we know that the British Museum is slated to go downtown, and they've just talked about different ways that they can bring some excitement about the museum and then also, maybe change the face of some of what we do downtown. So I kind of wanted to show you an example of what they've been working with, and they are preparing to come before Paddock to see how y'all feel about a British-themed downtown.
What's our confidence level in this museum happening in the next 10 years right now?
We are requesting funding. It is not currently funded in any of our budgets. That's what I can confirm with you, but we are requesting funding and looking at applying for grants.
Is that willing to be clear? Are we expecting them to come to Paddock to ask for funding specifically for this item or other proposed items in conjunction with going after grants?
No, so what they're wanting to bring forward to the Paddock is maybe some ideas of different things that you could possibly purchase for downtown if you're looking at doing gateways at Rockwall and Virginia, like a British theme to those gateways or a British theme of Catherine going into the new town square. But no, they would not be requesting funding for the museum, no.
So with that not being a concrete in-stone thing that is for sure happening, are we kind of getting the cart in front of the horse by talking about what we could accessorize for something that may not even happen?
It's all in how you look at it, because, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Because if you're in the museum seat, they feel as though you need to get downtown excited about a British museum. But if you are downtown, then why do we have a British downtown if you don't have a British museum? So I
think I'd rather have a Beatles mural, though, than a deed boot. If we had a
Thank you for bringing this part of the presentation. I hear you. And we have kind of talked about themes for our downtown in this group. So British theme is one concept.
it is an option.
I do like that it would make us unique and it would be something to see. I would be very hesitant and cautious that we not become kitschy.
Yeah.
There needs to a little British flavor wouldn't be bad, but like a reproduction would be too much, I think.
I concur.
Harry and Meghan mural on my building.
Just with the funding that the city has already provided the British Flying Museum, I'm also curious to see what their timeline and funding mechanisms are before we really continue to dive into the conversations of additional funding.
I think it is definitely fair that y'all ask for an update for the museum itself, and I will communicate that.
I mean, I think this is a wonderful history we have in this town that makes us different. I don't want the whole downtown British, but if we're going to have something, a British museum downtown, I feel like there should be something a little bit more so it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb.
Right.
It's in the middle, so it'd be interesting just to hear their thoughts so we can start kind of thinking and looking forward, hopefully, down the line.
I was just showing you a few. They really have done a great job putting together some renderings, and it's a really good idea. Where do you draw the line? That's why you are here.
It would just be interesting to hear some different opinions.
Absolutely, yeah. Is there any other project, any other budget items that you would like to see coming forward? Anything that we can be gathering?
An update on what's the big building where Hard Bodies is? Anderson Building. I know that they're working on a couple other projects. They were waiting on utilities. My guess is what we gave them a long time ago probably is, it's still in our budget, I saw that, so
Yeah, so they are finishing up the Lyric. It'll be done this month. They will be finished in March, and then their plan is to move their construction crew over to the restaurant portion. So that's, we're just moving right along.
More of a Glenn thing, and I see Glenn stepped out, but I'll just tell you if you wouldn't mind relaying it. I had spoken with Glenn and Mike probably 9 months ago, I'm gonna say, about seeing a proposal on the basketball court at Ben Gill, right there in that corner. And Glenn had told me he kind of had some initial steps in that, but if we could just have a follow-up on that, I would love to see something presented on that as well.
Bring that to your next meeting, for sure.
I can't remember for sure, while my mind is on the parks as well, the softball complex, if there was talk about shade structure over those bleachers. You know, there used to be like scorekeeper benches out there, but the complex looked rough, and the restroom will help. And of course, we don't have a softball program for kids right now, but the adults are using it, which is great, and they're busy, and it needs some attention. Same with the soccer fields, now that the soccer program is been reborn. There's, opportunities for shade structures out there,
Got it.
bleachers, that kind of thing, that's, to me, low-hanging fruit.
With staying along the line item of the, talking about the capital work plan, before we continue to move forward and are on the parks conversation again, for the proposed parks and paddock meeting, I'd really like, I hate that I missed the last one, but I would like to see more of a interactive opportunity and leave I would like to leave that meeting feeling like we have an idea of what we agreed on. We gave opportunity for, while we have the opportunity for us to speak, but I don't know if maybe you can help us be a little bit more creative on how we can have that be an interactive or visual meeting with visual.
I would probably say, and Matt, help me here, but we could, food is always good, and I would see it more like a workshop session, everyone around a table having conversations. And so if both Paddock and Park Board wanted to suggest topics for discussion, and then that way you have a list of things you want to cover, and we can make sure that they get.
No presentations. Last time we just sat and watched presentations.
No, I don't, no presentation.
And I guess
Conversation.
the other thing is because we have short-term and long-term projects, and really making sure that we understand in that meeting what funding Paddock has set aside for projects, right? And if these are still on your wish list, well, know that they're going to have to come out of the Paddock board, the park board, city council, but still would love to see what that, wish list would look like outside of the Paddock.
Does the Park Board have like a goal or I know they go off the park plan, but, do they have a list of items that they are requesting funding for?
Right now, I think our focus has been pushed towards the park, the linear park behind Film Alley, and finishing Breezy Hill, and then we're starting the Arlie White pretty soon. So, we did the bond a few years ago, and I think that's all spoken for, and it's all moving forward. Obviously, these restrooms were a need. We still don't like the money on it, but we needed restrooms bad enough. We got tired of fighting. So I don't think we've asked for anything that I can think of, anything specific. We're not short on ideas. So if we do have a meeting, we need to have like a timekeeper, like we're playing a board game, and just be like, all right, you got 5 minutes. We are an idea group, which is great, but.
Like Pictionary, do it that way.
It might be a more productive conversation if Glenn's team had those ideas ahead of time, had dollar figures assigned with them, and then we could talk about prioritizing.
Gotcha. Can do that. Anything for downtown you would like to see pricing for other than the items that I put on your list? Are we good?
How much does Ferris wheel cost?
I mean, if I could make one request, I would like a Ferris wheel. I think that would be fun. So,
Other downtown items that we want to explore? Did you want to talk about or you kind of already did, the downtown revitalization program guidelines?
yeah, so I've highlighted a few of the main changes would be where it's not just the property owner that was applying, but if you were a tenant and you had a signed affidavit of the property owner, then tenants can also request funding. So I was able to get an example of that. As far as your eligible projects, I made it more about life safety when it comes to code compliance, et cetera. And then also lighting, definitely wanted to make sure that lighting and signage was in there. Put some time limits on construction and where they could only have, one 30-day extension. And if you get to the end of your construction timeline, then you have to come back and reapply so that we can keep the funds moving forward. Lots of photos. I would
say that's pretty tight. And there's so many things construction-wise that are out of their control. 30 days will fly by.
Is 90 a better number?
Especially if you're talking about electrical or plumbing, like, if you're talking about paint.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know, I know that that's important to have benchmarks that they meet, but if you do 30 days on construction these days, everyone's gonna use that for sure.
What if it's what if it's a set amount of inactivity? You can't go 90 days with no activity after your construction plan is up.
After your start date.
Something,
I mean, once they pull the permit, I know that they're gonna have all of those inspections and those things will go along. So I think as long as they stay on somewhat that schedule, and even bring the building official in, now that he stepped out, I'll volunteer him to kind of keep you in the loop of how things are going.
Right. Just
There's
making
delays,
progress.
obviously, that are financial, and then there's delays that are, we're waiting on a door fixture for 6 months.
I know, we talk about y'all all the time. I don't know why they're not moving forward.
Glass, we're waiting on glass. It's all painted, so that's good.
No, you're good. Okay, well, I'll make some adjustments to that for sure. Mainly, we just want to make sure that they're continuously showing progress. Those are really it. Just like I said, what I went through and highlighted are the big differences between what the application was before.
And that, we've seen this happen with the Peñas buildings, with Dr. Ng. We've seen all these partnerships that we have had, the original plan versus when you actually started construction, what that looked like. With just the age of these buildings and the length of time that has gone between renovations and updates and things and current city codes versus what it was the last time it was renovated, I'm very glad that we made this shift from facade only to the life of the building, because that
Good.
does go so much. So thank you for seeing that need and adjusting for that.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
thank you, Raylan. I do believe we're going to discuss one item in executive session. Is that an issue? It has. It was land, it had to do with land acquisition. Okay. That's okay. We didn't take any action on anything today, so at our next meeting, we will add that. To be transparent, I had concerns about one of the land acquisitions around Breezy Hill, and I didn't want that just just to move forward without us discussing it first, so we'll talk about it next time. All right, thank you. Anything else? All right, we stand adjourned. Thank y'all.